Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. I'm going to continue some of our acrylic techniques that we're kind of looking at, and one of them that I had a very good question yesterday was for how do what are some of the ways in which you can add depth to your painting? Now, what I'm going to show you today applies to roses. We'll do it here with some roses, but it's also going to apply atmospherically to a landscape, and I'll do a little one of those maybe later on today or tomorrow, and I'll put those up, that one up right away as well. But you, as an artist, you have to relate everything to your background, so I'm going to show you how to do that. What I have here, this is just a lightweight canvas panel, and you don't see me paint on those too much, but I'm going to do one today, give a little bit different look to it, but it is a very fine weave, and it is a 14 inches this way, 18 inches this way. And then I'm going to be using my standard palette that I have out here, which is listed in the video description below. So you'll see it right below. Just go there. But I'm going to add two colors to it today, two neutrals that I really like to use. One of them is a medium white, and the other one is the light gray, the Heritage light gray. And I like to use them together. This one's very warm, this one's slightly cooler. I kind of brush mix them all together to get a very neutral temperature background. I'll explain that right as we get going. But for you beginners watching through this video, maybe trying some of this, is a great way to learn how to quickly visually add depth to some of your even flowers, even a small bouquet of flowers. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this is the larger fusion brush. I'm just going to use water because I want this to dry really fast. And I'm going to take some of my gray, which I like, and some of my medium white, and I'll brush mix these together. Now, the value of these are both right in here. This is the value scale. The link to download it and this stuff is in the video description as well, but they're going to be right down in here. Right in, it's like a 8 going down to it. This gray is like an 8, goes right down towards a 7. The medium white is more like a 7, and so it's a kind of a light color, but not when you put it on the white here. So I'm going to do very contemporary here and leave some of the white areas out here to just to give a look. I love painting contemporary backgrounds and stuff, so we'll leave some of this white. I'm going to go a little bit heavier color right here into the center area of this, but I like this. And we talked about, how this I call it granulating out. Some people call it a dry brush. In the lab, we call it a granulation of the colors. The moisture is running out of the colors and giving you that look. And so I like that look. And so you can get that look more often by keeping your paint slightly dry, not quite as much water. And I just love that look, especially as it's going out to the outside, out through here. So I just lift the pressure and put some of that look. I want to concentrate the flowers in here. Now, I got myself a couple. These are hybrid tea roses, Baden hybrid tea roses. I'm not going to copy them. I just use the photos for inspiration. I painted thousands of roses, and sometimes I don't copy them. I just kind of like put them out there for ideas of petals, and it's kind of like a security blanket. You're not always painting with nothing to look at. So I'll do that now. I'm going to let that slightly dry up a little bit. In the center of interest, let me just show you here while we're going here. Okay, so let's just take, what is it when we talk about atmospherics? Atmospherics means that the colors that you're using, like in nature, like if you're looking at mountains disappearing into backgrounds, okay, the forward mountain is actually darker and it becomes lighter as it goes back into the background. That's called the atmospheric. That's water vapor in the atmosphere going through, magnifying the light, making it lighter as it goes back. So the mountains in the back actually appear slightly lighter, and they get more atmospheric. They take on the color of the background. That's all you have to remember. It's that easy. So if I come up here and let's just say I'm going to take some of this nice bright little violet color here, right? And if I come in here and I make this mark of this violet, you definitely see it. Does that make sense? You definitely see it. And if I want to make it disappear or make it look like it's going back, I slowly just add a little bit of the background to it. So if I add this background into this color right here, you'll see it get softer. And as I add more of that, leaving just a little bit of that color in there, it gets softer yet. So you can see what you go, here's my center of interest. Well, that's what happens in those mountains. This is what happens in a painting. This is what I do. I brought this one up. This was another YouTube that I did 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I did this one, and I just showed you how to quickly focus your eye into here and take this out. So this is out there for you to go look at. And, you know, that's what you can do. You can focus your eye in here. And it's basically, as you go out, your colors have to become more like the background. That's the rule. In a landscape, that background is the sky, right? So we have other things called linear perspective, size, edges. There's other techniques to make them. So, but color-wise, this is what I'm talking about. If I take some of that original color, though, and I come back out here and put it out there, now your eye jumps between the two, and this one pushes that one further back. Do you see that? So there's a lot of things, once you understand this, there's a lot of tricks that artists can use to push something back or bring it forward, but that trick is always the relationship to your background. And so, and it doesn't make a difference. I have a neutral out here, so it's very easy to see, but, and it could be a bunch of different things. So I want to push, I'm going to push some of this color, and I'll just soften it right here into this background right here. And I'll just leave that up there because that's just a good color for these particular roses and stuff that's up there. So let's go in. Now, so when I'm going to come in and paint something into the center of interest, I can go full value here. And let's just do something like that. Let's kind of pick a rose that's right out through here. We'll push some of this color right into it, right here. And I'll lift the pressure on my brush, letting it hit some of that other color and hit some of that background. And I can deepen it. I can really deepen it to say, ooh, here comes the center of interest, because that rose has a good center of interest on it right in here. See? So that's the center part of the rose. I have it at a slight angle here. I can change some of that color up. That's very cool. We can warm that up with a touch of our Naphthol Red Light and give a little bit of warmth out here. Now, let me show you something. So even within the rose itself here, I can push some dimension into it. So I'll put the color in pretty heavy here. Now watch how this recedes into the back, and this is why you see me all the time push my colors. As I recede it into the back, I soften the color here and push that transparency, those edges. I'm softening everything, and the back part of that rose softens back. Now that's a little more than I wanted to do, so I'll just come back and add a few little marks here to that rose and leave some of it up into there like that. And let's make a nice darker center, a little more red violet right here into the very center. All right, so now I have the pretty center of a rose, a little warm color coming up here in the front. It's a back color. So, and you can see as this color disappears out into the back, it starts to go back. So we're going to want to keep some color. Let's put some of this color, both of these, and a little bit of this right down in here into the front, maybe down into the front of our bowl here, okay? And then we'll let it soften out as it goes to the back. So this deeper color, this is going to be like a bowl shadow right down in here. We'll put a few marks of that. You see a touch of a nice yellow green in there, which is real pretty. So we'll take a little yellow, little of our two yellows here, Hansa and Yellow Oxide, a little bit of green. Let's push a bit of that. I love greens and pinks into these white, you know, hybrid tea roses. I love those colors in there. So we'll push some of those colors in. See, I'm not going to copy that one. I'm just using it for some inspiration, colors and stuff like that. Okay, so now I have that in. And if none of this, you have other mediums. Like I have this medium out here. This is the Derivan Open Medium, Matisse Derivan Open Medium. Excuse me. I have the Heritage Extender Medium if I want. But I put this on pretty thick, and I'm waiting for some of this outside edge here to dry. So but the inside here, it's still a little bit wet. But we can go on, okay? Now, I'm going to start painting some of the lighter colors, and I'm actually going to take a little bit of this medium white and white. I love painting medium white. It helps keep my whites from getting whites, and you can see the value difference here. The value, medium white's down here, white's up here. So I like to have a little bit of the medium white in here just to draw out some soft petals here. Let's just draw out and pull in. So here's my bowl. So I'm just going to draw some, like here's an outlet. I'm not copying that, but I've got kind of the movement of it there. Let's add kind of the movement of that one right out there. And we'll get that little bit of a point back here. I kind of like that, so... Yeah, that's pretty good. We'll bring this other petal back in. But sometimes I'll push those together just to soften that expression where it's going to come into the bowl. It gives me just an idea of where that is. Let's take more medium white. Now, why more medium white? Because I'm heading right around here to the background. As a matter of fact, you can see it's very pink, so we might even want to touch into a little bit of soft pink right up here. And as we add some of these petals back here, we'll put a little bit of pink into them. And if it starts to dry up, you can just add a bit of extender into it and loosen it up here. I step way back on my, that's why I use long handled brushes. I step way back, which keeps my brush, the tip of my brush, very soft here. So I'll just add that in, okay? And then maybe back up to some medium white and stuff as we start to come forward here. This one has a small one. I could actually put just a touch more white right into that edge there. And again, I'm not copying it. I'm just looking at it for some inspiration, some movement here. Let's find this big sweeping petal right up here into the front. And I'll just push that into some of that pink. And then I'll grab some, what do you see out here? Some of that pink and stuff. And I'll use that pink and just to sketch a little bit of the shape of that one. And then I'll go back to my medium white, maybe even a little gray into that, a little bit of this color, nice dirty color. And just softly push that right in between here. Maybe take that out there like that. So I get the shape kind of my rose here, see? And, the hybrid teas always have a lot of these little color edges onto the petals. And, of course, this one you can tell is a little bit older than this one, even though this one is more opened up. But a lot of that color has disappeared onto the edge of the petals. And so that happens as they get just a little older or they get a lot of sun bleaching to it. But let's just come in and add a little more of that pink. Let's put a bit of that pink right where we see in there. See, I can just whisper light touches with my brush here. Let's push some of that right in here. Okay, that's pretty good. Now we'll come up and build the center up here, the bowl. So I'm doing this a little different than what you've seen me do on other ones. And once you understand the roses, you can paint the petals as an artist in any order that you want. You really can. Once you understand them. Let's get some pink and let's just pull some of this across. And I'm not painting petals. What I'm doing is finding the movement. And you're gonna, I see that one coming in right there. Maybe I'll take just a bit of that, maybe the point of my brush, and just kind of draw that one coming in like that. Okay, one coming in and around into the back. I'm finding the movement of the rose here. And you know, maybe this little edge. Do you want to do the rolled edges of this rose? That's up to you. Or do you want to do the petals that I like to do? I don't always like rolled edges on a rose because to me they start to distract from the beauty of the shape of the rose. So maybe I won't do those rolled edges right up there. But I have other videos on that if you want to roll the edges, you can watch those. But I like to put in more of the power of a petal pulling down. And let's go a little bit lighter. This is very wet, so it's hard sometimes to get color to stick on. So what I do is I lighten up my pressure and just lightly drag the brush across, and that sets the color on. And then I can just pinch wipe just to get a little of the extra off, and I can pull down into the shape. But I want to leave for right now that color on. And I haven't added any extender to this, so this should dry pretty quickly, which is what I want it to do. And I'll show you some more painting of it. So here we'll drop in another little light petal, maybe right in here. Pull down towards that center. I've got a little texture there, and I kind of like it. I might leave it. And pull around with some pink. And you can go right back as you get to that center, go right back to some of that dark and just kind of paint the motion. Don't always worry about painting, and this is why I tell everybody about painting roses and stuff. Don't always go in there and paint petals. Paint the motion of the petals. Do you see them circling around? Do you see them falling out? That's what I'm looking for when I paint pretty roses. And you can see this is already dry right here. With the Heritage, I can add a little water. See, it's dry. And I can just mix it up, and I can get some of that color back with just a little bit of water. You can do that for an hour or so, a couple hours. I'm just going to push some of that right in here, just different color right in here. Set that rose like that. I like that. Get some of this color right here at the bottom of the bowl where that's going to go. Now, that rose is very wet in there. I put a lot of paint right up in there, so it's very wet. So I'm going to have to probably move on to another rose because I want it to dry a little bit. Why do I want it to dry? It's easier to paint it acrylic and rather than keeping it wet. And I'll show you because I like to paint the tones, the colors, and it's easier to paint it acrylic that way. Let's leave that little light point here. We'll just put a little light and a little texture out there. I don't have to be perfect with it, but you know, so let's put this motion of this light petal crossing right here, right up in front, that one right up there. Okay, and we'll just put on the color for right now, and then I'll soften it and fix it up. I'll show you later. I just want to get what I call, in a lot of times when I paint stuff like this too, you'll see me in landscapes and stuff. Like the last landscape I did, I put things on for what I call benchmarks, colors that just help me identify one area, and I'll go back in and I'll reshape that later on and do more things with it. I'll reshape it and stuff later on. But I get that benchmark color in that helps me with that the shape of that rose or something else inside the rose. Let me just take a couple of lighter colors that we have right up in here into the center of this rose. We'll push in a couple of lighter, kind of spinning petals. It's like I always show you, the petals inside the rose kind of spin around. Let's take a bit more of a red and some red violet. Kind of spin a warmer color around in there. That gives you kind of a pretty little center inside that rose. Now, I'm going to let this tack up just a bit. This could come out a little farther. It's out farther on that one. But let's paint another, let's start another rose right back in here. So let's actually do it here, and then we'll paint some rosebuds up here. So if I want to paint another rose back here, and I want it to fade away, what I've really got to do is take some of my background and add it to these colors. Does that make sense? I've got to make my color more like the background. So I'll put a softer color right back in here, and I'm using that as my target. So we'll push this rose right up here, kind of soft right in here, okay? And we can go a little bit darker, but I'm not going to go that dark, that powerful. So we'll add a bit more. You can see as I add this color, I'm taking it away from the actual color of the background, and it's starting to come forward. Let me show you. If I go too much, it really starts to come forward. Does that make sense? So that is kind of okay, but we don't want to get quite that much, not yet. Let's put a bit down in here, and sometimes I put it on and just paint a little of the background right through it to soften it out. Okay, but I've got to make sure that my top one there for distance and stuff will have a little bit more pure or dark color that it will relate to. Does that make sense? So I might add that in, and we'll change that in just a bit. But the big thing is this color has to become more like the background. And if I soften that out a bit, let's just soften it back out back here, you see more depth come to this rose, a bit more. Take some of that softer color and push that back, and you'll see this rose is starting to come forward. This one is going back. If I want to bring this one forward even more, there's a mark that would help us quite a bit, and that's that darker color right in there. So what I look for is colors that are darker than the background. Where are they? And they're going to help. Anytime I place a darker color than the background, let's just take a little warm, a little red. Anytime I come in here and place any kind of darker color, it's going to lift off the background. See that difference here? See? And that's going to lift this rose off the background and push that one down. So if my background is light, the darker colors push it forward. If my background is dark, the lighter colors pull it forward. Okay? That's how it works. So let's take some of our lights, maybe a little soft, a little gray here, and maybe just a touch of warmth. And I'll keep these colors softer. And you can see it's softer, it's grayer. Even my whites might be a little bit softer, so this rose sets back here into the background here. So even my whites might not be as white. Let's put a little bit of yellows and a touch of green in there. A little bit of that color. Love that color in there. Push some of that in there. It's just a nice, and it plays up against these reds, these neutrals really well. Just nice color. And so we'll go a little bit lighter here and pull some lights here. Here we go. And we'll paint some of those, maybe some more of those oval shaped petals that we see on that other one. So we'll oval that one up here. Maybe some up and over here. Right around like that. And I can, slowly go a little darker, but not as dark or not as much as there. And you'll learn in color theory, and I teach a lot of color theory. You'll learn in color theory that these colors, that the amount of what you do and where you do in those colors really make a difference, okay? So you'll learn that in some of the color theory that we do. So we'll come back and we'll add a little more light. And let's just pull that down. We'll keep it kind of soft because I'm not quite sure yet just how much I want to do on this particular rose. We'll add a bit more light, maybe even just a touch of that other color right out here to pull some of these petals in here. Just like that. So these roses I'm painting here are what we call very formal in shape. And I'm just going to lightly here kind of paint the shape. I'm not gonna do anything just wild and crazy. I just want to kind of get a feel for the shape of something. So the movement, right? It's the movement more than anything else. So I want to get some of the shape or the feeling of the movement here. how these are going to maybe pull in, because I can bend them down and curve them, or do like I did on this one, you know, kind of push that light all the way here, and then it will go slightly darker. And then I'll come right into the center there, grab some of this red and this green, green's yellow, and just push a couple strokes right into that, and that'll bring some of those tones together there, like that. So, and I'll probably want to take out, I think I'm going to take out some of this red, this edging right here till it's a little softer. And that's your choice, you know, how much you're going to leave that. So I'll leave just a touch of that right there. And, you know, it's kind of fun. And with these roses and stuff like this, you can, you know, you can control, you can decide, or you can play back and forth a little bit until you find the way that you want to paint them. So let's just leave a bit of that light right up there like that. Here we go. And so I'll leave this kind of soft right through there. One of the things I want to do, let me show you this too, because it's very important. So we got, you know, one of my favorite greens is a warmer green, kind of not a real bright green in painting roses, and it's burnt sienna, and it's pine green. And when I use that, see, this will help contrast the rose up here in this area. So, you know, do I do specific leaves yet? I don't know. Just might put some color on there first. But you can see that's really powerful. Now, if I want to come back here and make it recede, what do I add to it? I add the background. So I just come sliding right over here, grab some of my medium white and my gray right here. Let's add a little extender to this too. I like extender as I'm heading into the background, because it thins the paint out so it doesn't have as much power as well. So, and then I'll come back here and I'll push this in. Now, so when you see the difference between the colors, this one comes forward, this one doesn't. So if I wanted to set another leaf underneath this one, this might be a better color right there, because it is becoming softer. And I'll get even more if I come in here and draw a harsher edge to this leaf. Maybe this leaf is going to have a harsher edge or something, and that will help bring it forward. But you can see all of a sudden now that is receding down. Does that make sense? And that's how I do that kind of stuff. So like if I want to move something into the background and I want to, you know, really grab some interest, let's grab some yellows and some of these colors, model this up. Maybe I might, you know, move some of these colors. I'm watching the color and where I want this, where this color is going to be full, like right in here. Boom, there it is, right in there, and full into the eye. And then if I want this to soften out so I don't lose my depth, what do I have to do over here? And this is why you see me so many times in videos. I have to either add the background, or many times you see me in videos, I take a paper towel with some water and I pull through. And what I'm doing is reducing the power of that color. The water also causes that colors underneath to mix up. Does that make sense? So I start to mix them up. And I like that. I like that look. Now, what do you do on up here? Maybe I soften this out a bit, okay? Maybe right in here I'll soften some of these greens out a bit. Leave that powerful green that's going to go up there. But this gives me a feeling of depth and movement that I might want to have in this rose, or where these two roses are coming here. Maybe a little bit darker right there through the center. That would lift it just a bit. You know, you try things. And that's what I always tell people. Try things. Put the color on there and see the reaction. Is that, you know, this color should not be darker than what we're doing there in the center, but give that a try. See if you like it. See if you like this other color, like coming in here. Push that color out, right? Now that's too much, right? You just said, Dave, you lost your mind. No, it's not. I can just take this here and I'll push this with some water. This is what I love to do in contemporary paintings, and push that out, see? And that gives me that contemporary look that I really like. I can add a little extender. Let's take a little yellow with some of that. Yellow green here. Push some of that around and then start my softening that I want to have to help some of that softening. So, you know, that works. Now let's go back. This should be starting to dry up. It's still wet, but it's starting to dry up. So let's go back in there. Take that green out of my brush for a second. Let's go back into some whites here that I want to paint up into the very front here, this edge, and I want to pull that down. So you can see it's mixing slightly with the pink, so it's still a little wet here. But that's kind of pretty. I can give it more of a light edge to really make it come forward there. I can push this edge to soften that edge of the rose right there. We said we might want to bring this one down. Let's do this. I'll show you. What I do is I pick up more of the paint on the edge of the brush. See how it's on the heavy on that real corner. Step back on my brush and use that chisel to kind of draw that in right where I want that to go. So we'll just do that. And then as I head into that center, this is where I'll take some of those other grays, softer colors, put that in my brush, and just lightly pull through that. That gives some of the gray and some of that other color, a softer pink in there. So it's not white. If I leave too much white on my brush, like a lot of you tell me, if I leave too much white, this whole rose will get white really fast, and I don't want that to happen. So after I put on that edge, I then drop the color down to a softer color, and that's what I paint the rest of the petal with, and that keeps that edge, that front edge of that rose, where I want it. And so even if I come back here and I go, ooh, let's see, that was going to have a little more pink in it. So we'll put a little more pink into that one. Come back here. If I want that petal really translucent, I'll leave some of the green in there. But I'll put this in. Let's draw a little lighter pink. Put a color or two of that in there. Maybe a bit of our softer, maybe a little sketchy, some of our reds here. And, you know, it's just the lines. You know, I'm looking at my overall rose in contrast, and this comes to you with time. How many lines I can really put in and still have that nice softness. A little bit of light here. I'm not going to roll that edge, but I'm just going to give it a little soft edge there. Back to a little softer green right here. And just push those in together. There. Let's take a little softer light. We'll draw a petal up here, and I'll just push right up to the edge of that white. Some of those colors together there. I like to do that a lot. You know, maybe some little edges here to these petals. Here. And again, you can roll them like I've showed you in some of the other videos. You can pull them down. I kind of like that. And you know, you can add a little more green and yellow and some of those colors. Something like this, but a little softer in value. But a nice, kind of a warm, slightly, a little bit of greenish color into that. And that would add, see how much that adds into the rose there? That other color. It's a soft color. It's a little bit of this color, actually. And I just add it into some of that area of the rose. And then I can play my light petal, draw that right back up here by that, right into that. And just makes a pretty little color transition there. Let's build this one up a bit more. Just a touch more there. And so I'm looking at all of the colors, and I know this is what is advancing the rose, and here it's softening the rose. And so all of this white that I'm now starting to paint with, right here where I really want to, this is going to help me advance my petals, my rose right in this area. I don't want to put that much on this one because I want it to soften. This is drying up a little fast here, so I'm just going to add a little extender, which will keep it a touch softer. A little green here. Let's just take that right into there. Soften some of that out. And sometimes I'll work these colors back and forth several times right up in here because I love the color movement that comes from working it several times. You know, back and forth. And this is what we say. This is just like a broken color in painting a rock video or something like that. I'm imagining the same type of thing. You know, let's take a little bit of slightly different kind of pink right here and drop in a touch more shadow, which is darker than the background, so it'll lift the rose back further higher. Does that make sense? Anytime I'm darker than the background, I'm painting contrast, whereas I'm bringing this out, especially as it comes up against that the green here of that area there. Now I can always lighten that up if I don't want to, you know, make my rose too dark. So there's lots of ways. I can just put in a couple of movement marks here to say just that's some of the other petals over there. I like that. Let's put a edge of a little pink right out here. I think that helps that rose. You know, and if you don't have those ideas, well, you look. You know, what do you see out there? You put some photos out and give yourself something to see. It's not the same structure, but I'm capturing some of the look and the colors. I really like that yellow green down in there, so I'm going to go for that again. The yellow green, maybe a touch of burnt sienna. Burnt sienna controls that pine green really easy. And that's a pretty color. And we'll drop that right in there. And there we go. And that's just a pretty color showing up in that rose right in there. You see that? Isn't that pretty? Looks like you know what you're doing here. Let's so I'll put that on. I'll soften it with just the edges here with a little bit of pink, but I'll leave some of that color mark in there. I like that. Let's soften that. A little bit of light over here, maybe just touch, just lightly whisper across, and maybe a bit more of that light right up here into the front. See, I just build that light, which is that rolling light on the petal. And you can just set that in several times here. And so I won't, and this is important, guys, I won't try, see how much white's on my brush? I'm not going to try to soften that out. I won't be able to do it. There's too much white on my brush. So I pinch wipe my brush, which takes off the extra paint out of it. See, the extra paint's now gone. And then I'm going to pick up some of the light, but I'm going to pick up some of the other color here. This is my favorite way to paint if I need to soften something really well. It's called a halftone. Here was that greenish kind of color in there. Here's the pinkish white that I'm coming right in between here. And I'm just going to soften right against that edge. And you can see it softens it really quick. Maybe slightly lighter here. I'll just pull down a little bit. But I'll leave some of that modeling. Let's go slightly darker right over here towards the green, and I can soften that one right out. I took out too much of that light. I didn't want to take out that much. So I get to put it back. Just like that, and it's back and forth. And after about 7 hours of mistakes, you get it right, right? Anybody can do it. You just got to look at where am I and where do I need to go? I need to soften those two colors. So that's the color, this is the color. I just got to come in between them, maybe a little pink into them. And I'll just pull right through that. And I'll soften it out. Maybe a little more light right in here. If it's real close, I can just pinch wipe my brush and just run it through. Pinch wipe my brush again, run it through. That's why I always have a paper towel in my hand so I can constantly work those edges. That stuff here. Let's get this a little lighter right out here. Put up a little more power to that petal right there. I like that. Maybe a little touch of a lighter edge right up here. Right on that one. I like that light going through the rose there. And like I really like sometimes when it's pink and then you see a light petal again back behind that. Maybe we'll just take an edge of this right back behind and just pop up a little light right in there. Maybe you see just an edge of another petal right there. Just a little light. That's up to you. But it is pretty, you know, so that you just don't always have dark, dark centers. You can have a touch of light, like it's hitting the edge of a petal in there as well. Let's come back down here. Let's just let's grab some of our pinks. We'll soften it back with a bit of our background colors. So we'll make some nice soft colors here. Let's put some of those soft colors on. We'll start to lighten them up a bit, but we can't carry as much white as we do on that one, but we can come pretty close. And the other thing is we're going to want to keep our petals here not as many edges. So these have a lot of edges, and this other one, if we want it to go behind this one, will not have as many edges. So we'll keep the actual painting of this rose, the greens, the colors here, softer. So everything stays softer. Not as many. So I can put an edge right here which causes that to advance. Do you see that? And I can lift up in there. But I might not do too much more than that on the rose because that would cause it to come too far forward. Does that make sense? So, but I look for roundness. So if I want this really round, I will put a bit of light, maybe right here, which would be the front part of the rose, right in there. I can put a little light, maybe not an edge like you see here. See, that little sharpness of edges in the drawing is causing it to come forward. The softness of this is causing it to recede. So you don't need those edges, if that makes sense. We'll drop around like this. Okay. Drop a little softness. I could have maybe sneak in just a little more darkness in there. Just for the interest of that rose. A little bit more. There. There we go. But I just might even leave some of that just really blurry. You know, that's up to you. That's an artist's choice. Maybe I just put a little light and maybe we take a softer pink here and we just do some soft edges right here. Some ideas, and we just let this rose sit out here real blurry, if that makes sense. Here, real soft. Let's just take a softer pink and just paint the movement of the petals. Don't paint the petals. Paint the movement of the petals. In other words, are they pulling out? Are they going up? So a little soft color, real close to the background. Here, real close to the background, soft. And if you want, like if you want a little more definition to that rose, rather than putting a bunch of light, because some of you may go, oh, I want to see more of that rose. Well, the way to do it is not with the white. The way to do it is negative paint some of your background here, which will start to lift this rose off the surface. So we'll put that on first, then I'll take just a touch of my, and this will probably do too much, but we'll see how that starts to lift this rose off the background, right? And if it's too much, I just drag through it, soften it out a bit. And, you know, so you start to see a little, but you don't, it doesn't take that much. Like I can come in here and just focus it a little bit, and it lifts the rose a little bit there. Does that make sense? So, like I tell you in so many videos, not only is it the contrast of the light and the dark and some of those other colors, it's the amount. Okay, so like if I want you to see up here, if I put a larger mark right up here, yeah, you're going to see it. If I put a smaller mark there, you're not going to see it. Your eye's going to be here. So it's a mount. A mount plays an important part as well. So maybe I'll just drop in a little bit of that right in there, and which I like. Let's take, I always love some of that burnt sienna and green into those rows, the stems. Let's come right back down here with some of these stems. Let that fade away right there. And maybe right over here. Pull some of that in. We'll pull in some other ideas of stems. I like to really stem up some of my roses sometimes with this. But stems just give so much interest to it. Let's come right up through here. Okay. And ideas, little touches. I like little blobs and touches of color. Let's do something real quick. We'll take some of that nice soft color there, and let's just put in the idea of a rosebud. And a rosebud is just going to be an oval shape, and so I don't want to paint too much. So I'll just paint ovals. Leave the edges, everything blurry right through here. Okay, everything blurry. I can start to draw. So I'll watch everything here. I don't want to do too much. I'll start to draw a little bit, maybe the edge of a petal right here. This rosebud's starting to open up a bit. Something like that. But I want, what's really going to make it a rosebud is always the spinning oval center. So I start to spin the oval center here, up and around, and that's what makes it a rosebud. And then I can take some of that color down here at the bottom, but I want to leave it kind of soft, if you know what I mean, and maybe a little draggy, a little bit of this dragging off. And I want maybe a bit of an edge right here, which helps us point to this other rose. Does that make sense? It's helping us say, hey, come look up here. That little edge there. Maybe one more little petal there. These are the things I start to look at. Maybe another little petal here. But I wouldn't put it down here at the bottom, because it would pull your eye here down. So see how that's lifting your eye up to this main interest rose that's right there. So, but if I come in here, I'll just do it to show you guys. I'll make a mistake and then take care of it. But see, if I put any kind of petal here, that starts to pull your eye slightly down. So I'll just blur that out. I can give the impression of it, but it's got to be blurry. Now the question is, could I put any more color in there, or is that enough? Do I need, now that I have that one, could I afford to have a touch more in here? A little more movement in here? Into that one? It's got a little too much on the edge, so I use more of the flat of the brush. Could I use a touch more interest right in there on that one? You know, and those are judgment calls as you're painting your flowers, but always relate it to the background here. We'll push in a touch of light spinning around there, maybe just a bit, just to soften that out. This front, maybe a touch more right in here. And if it's too much, you just go take it out. But you don't want to get too much of an edge. This one's sitting underneath that one. So keep your mind on, keep that on. But you see, the more I do it, the more it advances here. So you have to be kind of careful, because you don't want them, you know. You start, what happens when you start to paint a lot of this, and my roses for a lot of years were not that great. No one wanted me to teach them roses, let's put it that way. And it was a number of years that was like that. But as I started studying other genres and landscapes, and what really helped it more than anything was painting the Dutch masters for so many years and seeing the shapes and understanding the shapes, but understanding edges and what edges do, and colors and glazes and edges, and see how that just pushes your eye right up through here. I like that. Let's take some of these light pinks, a little warmer, into our pink. Okay, and let's just come right up here and we'll push a nice soft, maybe a juvenile rose right in there. And sometimes, boy, you know, just leaving it kind of like that is really a lot of fun. What I see is, I see in the center and then a few outward petals. And I've always wanted to paint that casual, guys. I've always wanted to paint that casual, and that took me a long time. I used to call myself the constipated painter. That's what I did. I was so stiff. But after you do 1,000 of them, it gets a lot better. You know that. And then, like I tell you, I answered this in one of the comments, too, last week, was time. Time yourself. Only give yourself a little bit of time to paint this painting. And I'm constantly watching the time that I'm painting something. Like right now, I'm at 51 minutes and 9 seconds. I'm watching them tick away. And I told myself when I started this, I want to do this painting in about an hour. So if I don't talk as much, I can get this done in about an hour. And now I'll push a little bit of light in here. See? Just a fun little painting. But see, this is the things, and this is how you learn, guys. You know, you listen to what I'm saying here is where my eye is seeing, what I'm doing. I want to put a little bit of light right up in here somewhere, which is going to advance a petal. But I've got to watch my edge here that I don't do too much that I take away from that other rose. Does that make sense? So I want to advance a bit of a petal, and maybe that's enough. And blur it back there so it's just nice and soft. And let's just take some soft white, which would cause the back of this rose to blur up. Why? Because it's more like the background, right? And maybe a soft petal right back out here just to shape it up a bit. But got a little frog in my throat today. A little bit back here. Let's just spin that around again. There. And oh man, what some of that green would look awesome up in there. Don't forget that. Sometimes I forget that. That green, anytime that yellowy green right up in there, that'd be so pretty carrying that color up and right in there. Took me a while, guys. It took me a while to catch some of this stuff. And hopefully, you know, you watch those of you that want to paint, you know, roses, you're practicing some of those other things, the seascape. You know, in my classes here that I have here, I taught everybody roses, and they came in one day and I said, okay, we're all going to paint a rock. And they're like, no, I don't want to paint a rock. I want to paint roses. And I said, if you can see a rock, the dimensions of a rock, the forward plane, the receding plane, the shadow planes, you can paint a rose. And you need to understand the planes of light. So you have a forward plane, a receding plane, and a shadow plane. And I see that in every rose I paint. So there's this thing, boy, David, maybe you lost it. You think that a rock is helping you paint a rose, and it does. But I have some students that are just like, no, I'm going to paint a rose, and I'm going to practice that rose and paint the same rose over and over and over again every day for 2 weeks, and I'll get better. No, you won't. You have to change what you're looking at so you see the rose differently. You get a different idea about painting it. Otherwise, you just repeat the same thing over and over again. Let's push in a little more light right there. Right like that. And I think I'll leave that one like that. Now, let's push some soft. Okay, here comes some of our leaves. We'll go to the back here. We'll push a soft green, some of my grays, my background, a soft kind of green back here. That could be a little softer, a little more medium white, little extender to help thin it out. Okay, maybe even a touch of white. And yeah, that's better. Softer here. And I'll wipe through that a bit. Just push in some back shapes. Let's go a little more greener. Okay. A little soft. And that's which you just said, that wasn't soft, Dave. It wasn't. Not so soft. So I'll just come through with some water. And what's the ultimate thing? Some of your background, right? some of your light, some of your background here, and soften that up right back there. You see just a soft little leaf back there. And what's making it soft? Because it's coming more like the background. As I add more background color to it, it becomes softer, right? Let's push just a little bit of this burnt sienna right in there. Boom. I like that kind of stuff. But that's kind of pretty. It's kind of a pretty little floral. I could paint these all day sometimes, you know. And, you know, I just really, really like it. I'm going to take a larger brush here and some of these colors and just move them out a bit. This is the contemporary that I like to do. So I'm taking some of these pinks and stuff, and I use a larger brush because the larger brush doesn't make as many edges, right? And I'll just push some of that color out. Yeah, let's pull some of this down right through here. Yeah, that's kind of pretty there. You know, and do you know, more leaves and stuff here? You know, that's, let me grab my brush that I just dropped. Do you do more? No, you know, that's up to you. I'll thin this out a bit. You know, I'll push that on there, and you know, maybe I'll make a leaf shape out here, keeping it very soft. You know, I like to be very playful with my leaves. I don't like them to always be perfect, but sometimes it's kind of nice to have a more shaped up leaf, one or two in a composition, just to help you know, set that all that green is leaves, if you know what I mean. Okay, so you know, that's and I'll look back through. Maybe I want to put just a little touch of that and some dropping down dribbly stuff. I love that. Shape up that edge. You know, maybe a very soft, light, very soft green shape. One or two little leaves coming out this way. Sometimes, you know, just a bit of them. Blur some of their edges. You can come back with a little bit of dark, which would be like where the shadow of the leaf is going up underneath the rose. You know, how much you do with that, that's up to you, but sometimes that just adds that extra little bit to the leaf. You can put some light and dark and paint them all kinds of ways, but I really like the softness of them, and just some real soft, kind of sketchy, blurry stuff coming out here. Works really, really well for that. Do you want to put something out there? Do you want to leave that? Do you want to soften it back with a little light? Do you want to just take, this is where I love to take the big brush, some of that pink, and just say the rose explodes up, right like that, and just push some of that pink real soft. But see, when I use a lot of water, when I wipe it down with a paper towel, what am I allowing to go through? The background, right? I'm allowing the background to go through, and that's the key to everything in softness and in depth. So how do you push something back? You make this more like the background. How do you bring it forward? You start making it darker, lighter. So white will come forward. The darkness here will come forward. And watch what happens. See, so I can take some of this lighter. Let's take a little burnt sienna and green, and a little yellow and some white. Lighten this back up again. Even a little more green, a little more light. And I'm watching my value scale here. People always say, you know, how do you know what you're mixing this? I'm watching my scale. And I know I'm right down in there in that leaf, and I want to come right up there, see? I want to come right up there with that color and maybe lighten right in here for a minute. And you can watch that soften, that exchange right there between those two roses. And, you know, do I want to soften that exchange of that green a little bit so it's not quite so much? Or do you like it? That's the thing. Every one of us is different. What, for me, you know, is one of the things is, you know, like when I'm doing a consignment payment, and yesterday I was working with a client that wanted me to paint this very special painting for him. So I'm walking around the studio with them and finding out what they like. And what I'm looking for is how much contrast. Oh, you like that one there? And I look at the color usage and everything, and the contrast, the amount of interest that that painting really, that's what's telling me the client. So that's what I'm looking at. How much interest do I want to have there? So you can see some of those fun things. You could bring this forward by putting that dark there, or I can just leave it where it is and you know, not have that. Or I can put an explosion of pink back up there and leave that. So, but either way, that looks pretty good. You could, you know, if you want, you know, some people say, do you ever give your rose stems thorns? Yeah, they're just a little triangle. And I usually use like a little burnt sienna, and I put out a little triangle shape. And you can give little thorns if you want, you know, here. And give more of a thorny appearance to your roses and stuff. But again, I like it to be blurred slightly and stuff. But there you go. So that's an idea. 1 minute, 37 seconds over the hour. But that's not bad. So it gives you kind of an idea, you know, adding some of that dimension and stuff to a rose, using some inspiration that it has. But more than anything else, guys, I always keep my eye on that background. Now, tomorrow, probably tomorrow, because my dog, I wish I could show you this. My dog's laying right here and snoring away. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. But we'll talk about this with the landscape. So I'll paint some receding mountains into the back and bring some of the prairie and stuff like that in the front. And I'll show you with edges, and we'll show that atmospheric. Learning, that's the big thing. Whenever I look at anything, even if it's a 2D dimension, you know, I visualize it into the 3D, and I use that. I do that by playing with my background. Okay? All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Go watch it again. There's a lot of little stuff in there. Watch it again. Listen to what I'm saying, what I'm looking at. Okay? Don't forget to like and share our videos. That helps our channels a lot. Okay? And click that little bell when you want to know when we have a new one. I appreciate that, okay? And those of you that were waiting for, I did that big landscape slide lake, and I showed you some of that pictures. We have decided that that's going to be on an online class because there's 8 hours of video in it. It's just too long, too large for YouTube. And my daughter's going to put it up at a very, very reasonable price just to cover the downloads and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be coming up probably this weekend. Okay, so, and I'll announce it here on the channel. Watch the community page, and I'll announce it on the channel. And we thank you so much for your support. You're special to us, okay? Hit the comments if you need something, want to see something, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll do a landscape, okay? All right, bye-bye.